California.
Yeah, well, in California, people feel it because of having basically three. We've got our sales tax, we've got our state income tax, and then we've got our property tax.
Right.
And everybody agrees that we're paying too much for what we're getting. And meanwhile, but we can't pay our bills. So.
And then there's all the complicated structure of the tax that includes a lot of deductions, credits, exclusions, all these kinds of things. They're very complicated. Now I know it makes CPAs a lot of money, but but at the same time, it creates a complicated structure, and I think the tax codes need to be reformed.
Yeah.
And we could make it simpler. It would probably make it easier for businesses to locate here.
Maybe. There are some other things too, and that is, I mean, structurally, basically when times are good, money comes in.
Yeah.
When times aren't so good, and we have some big bills to pay because of unemployment and other things, then the money, of course, isn't coming in, and that's what's creating, sort of this vicious cycle.
Yeah, I think we have a wide springing swing in revenues. Now, the way I would deal with that is I support a reserve policy.
Yeah.
I think if you have a rainy day fund, you hold that money, and when times get bad, you deliberately use that to avoid massive increases. But you also got to do some things with your basic costs of government, which are personnel costs, and not add any employees, look at ways of saving in terms of compensation. Those kinds of things can be done also. So I think rainy day funds, we should have a rainy day policy and we did at the county, we put 5% aside. We met that goal even in bad times.
Yeah. So it goes back to that old biblical story of Joseph. So we get political guidance in the Old Testament where in the 5 good years they put the grain aside, and then when the 5 bad years came, then they had something to use to support the people at that time. And so, but when we have the good times, it's like, oh, there's more money to spend. Well, gee, I could use this for something.
In California, when we have good times, I think a lot of the taxes, there's always pressure to reduce taxes in the good time. And then what happens is later on when times get bad, you say, gosh, I never should have cut back those taxes because, boy, the schools could really use those revenues right now.
Well, we had the auto registration fee or whatever.
Vehicle registration fee. That was, boy, that happened before I became a legislator, but that's $8 billion that would have pretty much filled the hole of the budget the last few years.
And that's what knocked Gray Davis out of office and brought in Schwarzenegger. Right. And he said, oh, we're going to get rid of this. And now he's saying, well, we've got to have it again. So,
well,
all right.
If you simplify the tax code, I think you can have a more consistent long-range fiscal policy for the state. And I think we have to have a long-range fiscal policy for the budgeting too, and that's control of spending.
Yeah, okay. When I was visiting with you, you mentioned a book that you were looking at the time by David Osborne. It's called The Price of Government. And he proposes in that book that government should use what he calls outcome budgets or performance-based budgets.
Right.
And so I was wondering, how would that work in California, and are there members of our legislature that have any interest in that concept?
Well, let me tell you about David Osborne. David Osborne went to Pioneer High School in San Jose.
How about that?
And he went to school with me at John Muir Junior High School. He went to MIT, wrote a book called Reinventing Government, did a lot of reform at the national level, reformed the budget process in Iowa, I think Washington, the state of Washington, and has been an expert, a guru on state government budgeting. He's saying that essentially we should be looking at the outcome of government, what government produces in a positive way, defining that outcome, and then making the budget based on the outcome, not on just incremental spending increases. And I think he's got a point, and I agree with that. There are other legislators that want to have more performance management types of budgeting in California. And we find out where we failed. You know, we look at where we failed in terms of delivery of services, what kind of programs just don't work, and we say, well, we're not going to do those programs anymore. And we don't just keep throwing the good money after the bad. That's one of the big problems of government. When things get bad, they just say, well, that program's not funded enough. Or when you look at the kind of systems you have, you spend money on the critical kind of crisis parts of the budget, not on the prevention part. If you spend more money on the front end, you save money, like in criminal justice, for example.
Yeah.
You save money if you spend more on drug rehab and keep the kids out of trouble.
Yeah.
You would save money in terms of the prison system.
Okay.
So I think we ought to start looking at government in terms of performance in a very religious way, and I caught that religion myself, so I believe in that.
Okay. Of course, one of the problems is getting an agreement on, you know, what that performance would look like. So
yeah, I said in the beginning there's 120 of us, and we all have different opinions. But I'll bet you we could find Democrats and Republicans agree on we need to change things.
Yeah.
Because we do. We need to change things.
Okay. You told me that the number of legislative analysts has been reduced from about 107 to 45. What's the impact of that reduction on the decision-making process for evaluating legislation?
Well, like I had said earlier, in terms of my local government experience, I think one of the most important thing is information. And you have to have neutral information coming to you, analytical information about proposals, the budget. And right now, by having less staff in the legislative analyst office, we have reduced the amount of information that we get to solve our problems. And the information they produce is professional, neutral information. Right now, there's too much partisanship, and it's almost like a hyper-partisanship. And the staff that comes in and recommends this or that, sometimes they're too partisan. If we had a group of people that are in their basic functioning, a neutral fiscal policy group of professionals, I think the legislature would function a lot better.
Okay.
And we'd have better information.
Okay. Well, we'd have probably about 30 seconds left. Do you have maybe some final words of wisdom as we wrap this up?
Well, I think we need a more or less, as I said, there's a lot of functional problems. We need to not pick away at the problems, but we need to look at a constitutional total review of the state government and devise a lean and mean government that can produce for the taxpayers what they want to see. And that means a constitutional change, a total review of the Constitution. And we need to do that really quick because things aren't getting any better, and they won't until we do this.
That's a big job. Let's hope and pray that something actually happens there. It's going to be
I'm going to do my
tough.
best to hopefully convince the other legislatures that that's what we need to do.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, Jim, I want to thank you
Thank you.
very much for coming today. You know, I'm really pleased that you were able to join me and share a little bit about what's going on and your viewpoints of what's happening in Sacramento. So, folks, I hope that you found this to be an informative and enlightening program, and I hope you can join us next time on Financial Insider Weekly.